everyone, it's Wildman. I hope you are doing well, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look at this very obscure YouTube channel called the McKinney Family Home Videos. The channel mainly focuses on this family who has just moved into this new town. However, there are some things that are off when it comes to the actual house, not to mention the father McKinney, who is being pressured by his mother to take his family to the local church, which he does, and once he goes to that first mass, they are very insistent that he continue to go to the church. There's a lot of speculation when it comes to this channel. There's a lot of missing people, as well as the mystery behind what happened to the McKinney family. And in addition to that, the disturbing things that we can find inside of these videos are incredibly unnerving. But before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as well as liking the video and commenting bruh as usual, because all of these things actually do help me out a lot. So if you could do them, that'd be great.
Got everything up and running here. I'm super looking forward to it. I think the kids are really going to love it. I think that Jess and I really just need to start over with everything that's been going on.
So the first video on the channel is called Move In 1991, and the entire video is pretty much just that. It's about Mr. McKinney moving into his new home and recording on his camcorder, showing his mother the entire house and showing her all of the things that he likes about his new home.
But let's take a look at the house. Definitely needs some work. Probably want to clean out these gutters a little bit. Realtor said the place nobody had been living here for a while. I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was like a party house or something. I don't know.
However, the deeper that he ventures into the home, the more clues we begin to learn about what happened here and the area that he's just moved into. Because although the area isn't too conservative, at least according to McKinney, there does seem to be a really high focus on church life in this community that they've just moved into, something that McKinney has kind of strayed away from, as his mother was really religious when he was a kid and would uphold those expectations to him, which we will learn a little bit more about as we get deeper into these videos. So when McKinney first starts the recording, he thanks his mother for watching his children for the day, just while he can prep some things before the kids get there, one of his children being named Christy.
I think we're gonna love it. I think the kids are really gonna love it. Thank you again for watching them, by the way.
But when McKinney walks over to one of the windows of his new home, we can see that the screen from the window has fallen off, which is a little bit strange on its own, because it kind of suggests that someone may have broken into the home, because if you've ever entered a home through a window, you have to take off the screen before you can do so. So the screen on the ground kind of suggests that someone may have been inside of the home without McKinney's permission. Also, the reason I know that is because when I was a kid, my parents used to leave the keys in the house, so they would kind of just shove me through the window, and we'd have to take the screen off, and I'd have to just, shimmy on in there and unlock the door from the inside.
Something to look into.
McKinney doesn't seem too bothered by this and kind of just brushes it off, which I don't recommend doing, because if you see a screen that's fallen off from your window, I feel like it is a pretty big cause for suspicion, so you should probably tread a lot more carefully than what McKinney's doing here, because it's most likely that someone tried to get inside of your house. When they're inside the home, he mentions something about his wife Jess, as well as offering his mother that she could stay with them on the weekends if she wanted to.
You'll have to visit. We don't have a guest room set up yet. Relinquish our room if Jess will allow it, and then we'll just couch it if ever you want to visit. No obligation, of course, but... Also got your painting hung up. Jess was insistent that we got this one up. She loves this painting so much.
It's also pretty cute how McKinney mentions how Jess has already been putting out Halloween decorations in the house, even though it's still September. He also mentions how Jess really wanted to put this painting up because his mother painted it for them. So far there seems to be a pretty healthy dynamic between the family. McKinney and Jess's kid gets along with their grandma, and McKinney's wife gets along with her stepmother. So all in all, things are looking pretty good for this family. They've just moved into this new home and everything seems fine and dandy. However, when McKinney makes his way into the basement, that's when things start to get a little strange. Because as McKinney is talking about some work they have to get done in the basement regarding some mold that they found in one of the beams of the house, which might honestly be the true horror in this series.
There is some mold. We're having a guy come in and get that taken care of, but I don't know, we got down here and the first thing that Jess said was, oh, this smells just like my grandma's basement. So, asbestos and lead paint, all that fun stuff.
However, as he's talking to the camera, there seems to be a crack in the basement.
Be safe more than anything, but let's take a look down here and see what we got.
It It honestly caught me off guard at first, and I wasn't even sure if it was intentional, but looking back on the footage, it definitely was. Also, before the face appears, we can see a telephone children's toy that was also in Skinamarink, so a possible reference to that movie, or perhaps just a coincidence. When McKinney's in the basement, he talks about how there's no power down here for some reason, and on top of that, the previous tenants left a bunch of stuff down here that they're going to have to clean out.
But then there's stuff that they left. There's all this stuff back here, so we're gonna rifle through this, see if there's any goodies or anything to be found out here. Finally got my exercise bike. Super excited. Another one of the wonderful treasures that were left behind.
But McKinney is pretty optimistic about the whole thing. I mean, there's mold in the basement, and the old tenants left a bunch of junk in the basement, but he seems to have a glass half full approach to the entire thing. From the basement, there's also a window where you can see the yard in its entirety, but McKinney mentions how the highway is also in the direction of the woods, and that if you trek a little too far into the woods past the backyard, there is a drop-off that leads to the highway. But in typical McKinney fashion, he doesn't really seem too concerned about the whole drop-off to the highway thing, but he does mention that he does want to put a fence up just in case, but it's not really something urgent. Other than that, when inside the basement, McKinney notices what looks like a wedding picture on one of the mirrors, possibly the previous tenants.
Who are these people? I wonder if these were the original tenants. I'll have to reach out to the realtor and see. I would hate for them. That looks like a wedding picture. I would hate for them to just not have their wedding picture.
And after this, McKinney receives a phone call from one of the locals at a nearby church.
I'm super looking forward to it. I think the kids are really going to love it. I think that Jess and I really just need to start over with everything that's been going on. Yeah, we don't necessarily consider ourselves, I guess, spiritual or religious people, but it was nice, and the fact that it's, so close to where we live, it was a good setup. I really liked being there.
And during this phone call, McKinney mentions how they've already gone once to the church and how it was nice because they didn't really know anybody in town, so it was pretty cool to meet the locals at the church. And like I said earlier, McKinney brings up the fact that he was raised in a very religious household, these rules held up by his mother in particular, and that this church in fact was the one that his mother had recommended him.
Well, to be honest, my mom was a very, I feel weird talking on the phone, but my mom was a very religious person growing up, and she had her own series of rules, and when we moved out here, this was the church that she recommended, we kind of did it as one of those things, and we actually ended up really liking it.
However, once the call ends, McKinney ends up agreeing to go to the church with his family on Sunday as well.
I don't really want to talk about getting too involved in church over the phone. I think that would be definitely more of an in-person thing. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for calling. Yeah, thank you for being so nice and, what? Oh, yeah, sure. I'll be on the lookout for that. Thank you. Alright. Alright, well, yeah. I'll see you Sunday morning then. Alright, take it easy. Alright, bye.
And even though we can't hear the other person on the line, it does kind of seem like McKinney was kind of peer pressured into going again. The person being very insistent that they return to the church on Sunday as well. The tape then ends and we can hear what sounds like a zip tie and a message in the closed captioning saying, "Hide." In this next tape called Bible Study 1996, it's been about 5 years since the McKinneys first moved into their new home, and we get to see what the family has been up to. Or at least that's the impression that you do get when you first look at this video. However, when you click it, things are very different. Because within the tape, we see a few glimpses of some goats, what looks like a farm, and some shots of nature before the tape glitches out, and we're shown a missing poster of a woman whose name isn't shown. However, they are 31, height 5'7", they're wearing jeans and a green sweater, and as for any identifying characteristics, it says that she has a tattoo of a cross on her left wrist. This person was last seen May 17th, 1993. And although we don't really get any identification as to who this is, we can make the guess that this may be McKinney's wife, Jess. After this, we're shown the following footage, and the person seems to be walking through a cemetery. Although the audio is heavily distorted, all they're doing is walking through the cemetery and not really much else, which makes for a very bizarre recording. But then again, another missing poster appears on screen. Age 24, female, 5'4", was wearing a black dress, and as for identifying characteristics, they are the same as the previous person, a tattoo of a cross on the left wrist. Last seen June 23rd, 1993, roughly a month after the previous woman. Then again, it shows another missing poster, age 22, female, 5'2", wearing, quote, shame identifying characteristics, tattoo of a cross on the left wrist, last seen September 23rd, 1993, 3 months after the last victim. And at this point, there is a pattern going on here. 3 women with cross tattoos on their left wrist within the span of 4 months have gone missing, starting in May and the latest happening in September. The tape cuts out and then delivers us the following message, which says, "We trusted you, heaven is not yours." The next tape in the series is called 3rd Grade Graduation, and we can assume that this is in reference to McKinney's daughter, Christy. This video also takes place a year after the disappearances, at least from the ones that we know of that were shown in the last video. There's also been a lack of presence from the McKinney family in these videos, which I find a little bit off-putting, considering they're the people that started this series off. But in this video, we see someone enter a school building and recording what they see from the inside of the walls. And things in this video don't really appear to have a narrative, at least at the surface level. All there really seems to be is someone walking around a school with a camcorder. But when the person enters the library, it appears that someone was following them. It then switches and we're brought into the teacher's lounge. Then the principal's office. The tape then switching to this incredibly strange segment in which we can hear the cries of what sound like children.
Daughter Babylon, doomed to destruction. Happy is the one who repays you according to what you have done to us. Happy is the...
And it is pretty hard to hear what the voice is saying. However, some key phrases that I could make out are, quote, doomed to destruction, He who repays for what you have done to us, and he is the one who seizes your infants and smushes them against the rocks. I won't come home again, but only you know why. The next tape is called Grandma's House 1995, and this is referring to McKinney's grandmother from the first tape, the same person who was very obsessed in their faith in Christianity and convinced her son and his family to go to the local church, which I know we haven't seen any evidence of it yet, but I do have a feeling that the ones behind the missing people are the church. In the tape, all we can see is this rundown home, like it's been abandoned for ages, lost to decay. And looking at the inside of the home, it hasn't been lived in for an incredibly long time, as there are signs of decay all over. This is my body. This is my blood. It's not enough. It was never enough. And after this, something incredibly dark happens, because the sounds of a fire begin playing, which are accompanied by the screams of the victims who were inside. This next one is called Christy Baptism 1993, and in this one things kind of continue that pattern of obscurity where we don't really know what's going on. All that we know is that there is a family called the McKinneys that consists of the father McKinney, the mother Jess, and their child Christy. And in the town that they've just moved into, there have been various missing people, all who share the same cross tattoo on their wrist. Also, something to note is that all of the footage that we have been seeing, these tapes, have been recorded over the original footage, which is why they have the titles like Third Grade Graduation, Grandma's House, and Christy Baptism. Even though none of the videos are about that, someone has recorded on top of the original footage, and that's the footage that we are seeing. And in this one, a person in the tape drives into what seems like the middle of nowhere, where they then get out of their car and begin venturing into the woods. And possibly this is Mr. McKinney looking for his children, who at some point between 1991 and 1993 have gone missing. The person in the video eventually makes it to this abandoned house in the middle of the woods, and they begin taking a look around, but there is no one here. And this building is the church, which is now abandoned and forgotten. A message appearing on screen saying, "Who is there? I can talk to strangers. Where are we going? He's hurting me." The person then walks to the back of the church where we can see various gravestones, and before the person can keep exploring, there is a faint groan which can be heard from the distance. The final message in the video saying, "Dwayne is blank." So in this video called Scaremirare 1995, we do get some footage of some actual people this time around, which we haven't really seen since the first episode. And from the looks of it, it seems to be a group putting together what looks like a haunted house in a garage.
It's all coming together.
And eventually we do get to see what the place looks like when they're done decorating it. But as they're showcasing the decorations, there is a prop which they didn't create. In this second to last video on the channel called Jessica Homecoming, it begins with what sounds like a preacher giving a sermon on the radio. However, the tone of it is extremely eerie and the delivery is very threatening. The voice saying things like they will shut down the gates of heaven and they have the powers to turn water into blood.
Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, where also their Lord was crucified.
Also, the title Jessica Homecoming is in reference to McKinney's wife, Jess. The tape then shifts and it looks like we finally made our way back into the home that the McKinneys were first moving into in that first tape. And it seems to be in a very well kept state, however no one is there. But before we can see more of the house, the tape cuts out and we are given this message. Do you see it? Do you hear it? Was it worth it? They're rotting and it's your fault. Vile blasphemer, hollow apologies. And we can then hear the screams of a woman. There's also a box outside of the home, however this is never elaborated on. This entire series is incredibly vague and we can really only grasp at straws as to what we think is really going on here. Because really that first video is all we can go off of, the rest has just been small clues sprinkled throughout the videos. The tape then shifts and says, "Can you forgive yourself? God will never forgive you." And perhaps the creepiest part of the series begins because when the person goes into the basement of the home, through one of the doors down there, it looks like someone has been living in this room, most likely being held captive. The final shot in the video is of Jessica, who looks like she's managed to escape from wherever she was being held. And after, all we can hear is crunching, followed by the message, "Help." In this final video on the channel called Blank, it seems to be an intervention or perhaps a therapy session with one of the members of the McKinney family. They ask them, "Tell me about your family," to which they refuse. "Why not? Do you have any friends? Show me." The person being interviewed is Christy. "These are my friends. These were my friends. This is Dwayne. This is Mom. This is me. Grandma. Mom will make it better." And the screams that can be heard during this segment are incredibly chilling, so viewer discretion is advised, but if you don't want to hear it, timestamp is right here. And the series kind of just ends right there with no real answers as to what is going on here. However, again, this is an ongoing series and there's still much more to uncover as to what is happening and what happened to the McKinney family, as well as the church's involvement in the missing persons. However, Dwayne does seem to be the name of the person who has taken McKinney's entire family and possibly the others as well. But yeah, be sure to check out the McKinney's Family Tapes channel. I'll have it linked in the description. And huge thank you to all of my channel members for supporting me, as well as my ultimate tiers: Dredator, Grim Ariano, Alejandro from the Tower, K-Pop Lover X3, and 1998. If you want early access to videos as well as your name right here, it's only $1.99. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Love ya. See you later.